Thank you very much, and welcome everyone to Improving Flight Safety and Efficiency Through Data-Driven Decisions. My name is Matt Madden. I'm Director of Product Marketing at Alteryx. And joining me today will be Bob Middleton, who is a Product Marketing Manager at Tableau, as well as Nick Stoichev, who is the Safety Data Analyst for easyJet Airlines. And we're going to talk a little bit about today how easyJet is utilizing Alteryx and Tableau to really mainstream and change the way that they're able to do some of their business. It's really a very unique and very fascinating use case that Nick is going to go over today and highlight some of the uses that they're able to do now with Tableau and Alteryx. But before we get started with that, I want to give you guys a little bit of background on who Alteryx is and what it is we do. And then I'll turn it over to Bob to do the same around Tableau before we actually get into the use cases themselves. So Alteryx is a leader in data blending and advanced analytics. We have associates across, all around the world. North America and Europe is where we have specific offices. We're uniquely focused on not only serving but also empowering data analysts in the line of business to really help them bring together the data blending and advanced analytics they need to be successful in their roles to deliver deeper business insights that most organizations and most analysts themselves know that they're capable of providing. We have over 900 customers around the world, some of the biggest brands out there, and we've been doing this since 2010. Now, we also have a strong foundation. These customers that we have see real value in the use of Alteryx every day, so much so that we have over a 95% renewal of their subscription contracts with us. In addition to that, we have some massive support from, some venture capitalists and investment firms that help us not only improve our go-to-market strategy and improve the expansion of Alteryx around the world, but also, more importantly, help us improve the technology that we're able to provide. So let's go a little bit around what it is we do from a technology standpoint. So the Alteryx solution really is about empowering or enabling analysts. And everyone knows any good analysis starts with data. So what we do is we give them the ability to access data virtually any source or any type. That could be cloud-based data. It could be data sitting in something like Cloudera. It could be social media data sitting on your desktop. It can be in the form of geospatial data, text-based data. It doesn't matter. We give you that ability to access that data wherever it is or whatever it is. Once you bring in that data, you can then cleanse, prepare, transform, and join that data together in a single intuitive workflow. We even are uniquely focused to provide packaged market data depending on what region you're in, from Experian, TomTom, and Dun & Bradstreet to help enrich your already built data set. Once you create that data set, we then give you the ability in that same workflow to rapidly design predictive analytics or spatial analysis and output those results to either a static report, an analytic application, or even something like Tableau visualization, which Nick will be touching on here shortly. So now that you have a general idea of who Alteryx is and what it is we provide from a technology standpoint, I'm going to turn it over to Bob Middleton from Tableau.
Appreciate the invitation.
Yep.
Since our foundation in 2003, Tableau's had one overriding mission, and that's to help people see and understand their data. Not just data analysts, but all people. Our aim is to make it easy. Sorry, I'm just trying to change slides here. Right. Our aim is to make it easy for people to connect to their data wherever it's stored and turn that data into visual insights just by dragging and dropping. And the way we've approached that mission has made us the leader in self-service analytics, with 3 years at the top of Gartner's Magic Quadrant for business intelligence and analytics. And we close the loop with desktop, server, and cloud solutions and even a free version for use with open data. And partners like Alteryx help our customers get the most out of Tableau and their data. And anyone can try Tableau free from our website. Now, I've just given you a brief introduction to Tableau, and I've heard Nick speak before, so I hope you really enjoy the rest of the event. So now I'd like to pass you over to Nick Stoichev, who will take you through how easyJet are using Alteryx and Tableau to get some real insights into their operations. Nick.
Thanks, Bob, for the wonderful introduction. And hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me. And from within our HQ, Hangar 89 in Luton, I hope to kind of show you a few of the examples of using these tools to kind of really gain some insights from the data that comes out of our aircraft. So I'll start with a bit of a short introduction of who we are, for those of you who don't know who easyJet is, and then we'll present 2 or 3 user cases, and then we're going to wrap it up and open up to any questions. So who is easyJet? We were founded in 1995, and we had 2 wet-leased aircraft, 2 737-200s, and now we've grown to over 230 aircraft, A320s and A319s. We're one of the biggest airlines in Europe and one of the largest operators in the world of these types. So we are the second largest operator of the A320 family aircraft after US Airways. So make a note of this one. We have 26 bases around Europe and all around Europe. And we fly over 750 routes, 66 million passengers annually. And if you can see on the picture at the bottom, we've just celebrated the delivery of our 250th aircraft, which comes in a new livery as well. So, as you can see, the data is a big part of what we do because we are a low-cost airline, and we try to be innovative in everything we do to kind of keep the edge, so that we can be lean and efficient in everything that we do, and we try and pass on these cost savings to our passengers, who hopefully would choose us for the quality of service and the value that they get for the price of their ticket compared to other carriers. So we hope. So to do that, data is a big driver in everything we do, data-driven decisions. So on the next page, I'm going to cover some of the data sources that we use in some of our data decision-making. So on the top left-hand side, you see ACARS data, which is data that comes through the aircraft's VHF radios. So it's encoded, but it's live, real-time, and we can kind of get some more insights into what's happening to our aircraft. The aircraft are pre-programmed to send some messages automatically, and as well as crew can send messages manually, like free text. So, for example, that's what they do when they're en route. They can advise how much fuel they're going to need before they land at the actual airport. So then they can load the tanker or the Bowser, depending on which part of the world you're coming from, with sufficient fuel. And also ACARS messages, for those of you who were monitoring the Malaysian aircraft accident, has been also quite a big driver into hinting as to what happened in the latest moments of that aircraft. Another one of the data sources that we do use, top right-hand side is WQAR. As you have noticed, from these two things in aviation, we're quite big on acronyms. So probably should have covered what ACAR stands for, first of all, which is Aircraft Communication, Addressing and Reporting System. And WQAR stands for Wireless Quick Access Recorder. Basically what it does is it duplicates some of the parameters monitored by our black box recorders and makes them available for analysis at the end of each flight. And I'll show you how that happens in the following slides. Also, we're quite heavy users on fuel data, which is quite important for us because fuel, is a big cost for each airline. Fuel is relatively cheap at the moment, but when it picks up, it's a main cost focus for a lot of airlines. And the last kind of data that we want to analyze, and in big numbers, is flight planning data, which comes from our flight planning system. but also from the positions of our aircraft, so the planned flight versus the actual flight. And then we can gather some insights if after analyzing this data on how efficient our flight planning is. So on to the next slide, getting the data out of the airplane. Well, basically we have two main channels of getting the data out of our aircraft. As you can see here is where the journey starts, the MIU. That's where the data is generated, and it's sent down two channels. One is all the time, which is the front bit. That's through VHF radio. The aircraft is all the time in the air or on the ground, but it's in link with the ground stations that receive these messages, decode them, and make them available to us. And then the data is integrated, and we can use it. The second channel is the channel which is used to sync the data from the quick access recorder toolbox, and that's mostly for flight data monitoring and fuel planning and analysis use. That's through 3G network. You can think of it this way. Basically, each aircraft has a SIM card, and when it's on the ground, the data is transmitted after each flight. So we're monitoring over 600 flight parameters. On an average day, we have about 200 ACARS messages sent per airplane per flight per day, which averages to about 50 messages per flight all the time. And it stacks up quite quickly, coming to think that we're in our busiest periods now. In summer, airlines tend to be quite busy in the summer. So we have 1,400 to 1,500 flights a day in peak summer, and you can see how that equates to lots of data that has to be analyzed. So without further ado, I'm going to delve into some of the actual examples, and I'm going to try and share my screen with you. And hopefully now you should be able to see my screen. So I'm going to use Flight Radar 24 to illustrate that example, which shows data coming from the transponders of everybody's aircraft in the air. And you can see London is here. And I've filtered to show only the easyJet airplanes that are in the air or on the ground and transmitting at the moment. So presently now, nothing happens in Luton. All the aircraft are on the ground and refueling, but you can see quite a lot of activity happening in Gatwick and in the air. And you can see it's all easyJet aircraft. So we can see that data and try to analyze it with analyzing the different ACARS messages, which we can see real time here. So here we're literally plugged into the ACARS system, and if I click refresh, you're going to see the time is in Zulu. So we have different messages sent automatically or on demand by each of the aircraft. You can see here they're requesting flight plans from one point to another. And previously, just tapping into that data real time, we just couldn't do it quickly enough to analyze everything that we wanted to. So with the speed and accuracy that we wanted. So what we did was our journey started a few years ago when we started using Tableau to be able to quickly visualize and analyze visually the data. And then now we're trying out Alteryx, and we have been for 1 year. And I'll show you some of the results that we have produced. So one of the things that we have to analyze on a day-to-day basis is the actual routes flown by the aircraft versus the planned routes, which you can gather by combining a mixture of these data sets, which we couldn't do before, and then seeing if they get any shortcuts. So what we did was, I got an idea that, hey, using Alteryx, let's plug in all the navigation data points that are used by our flight planning system, and obviously join them into one, because you have all sorts of different navigational points. You have ones that are transmitting, ones that aren't transmitting. I won't go into detail. Don't want to bore you with all of that. So we have that coming in on one end. Then we have some spatial processing, and then we're using some of the ACARS data that we couldn't actually analyze before, which shows us what the planned route was on the day. And just to give you a bit of insight, the flight planning system recalculates our routes pretty much very often 24 hours before the flight. It starts re-optimizing so that we can fly the most efficient route possible. So we have that data, but it's in a different data source. So we realized, hey, some of the data that we do need is coming from the ACARS messages, but the ACARS messages are in a format that's, using traditional tools like Excel, it's very difficult to make into a readable format. So that's where Alteryx came in. And in this example, just using some of the regex tools, I'm transforming some of the wind data request messages in this case to points, which are the points that are on the airplane is going to fly on that day for that flight. And let's see the results in Tableau. And that is for a flight from Gatwick to Sofia last summer. And what you can see is the actual route flown versus the planned route flown. And point A is Gatwick, point B is Sofia, where I'm from originally. So you can see on the different dates how that varies based on the wind. And obviously, for some points we don't have, for some dates we just don't have enough points to visualize one or the other. But you do realize that the flight crew is getting consistent shortcuts around here. So just after they enter Germany, for example. And then we can use that to kind of continuously feed our flight planning system to, for example, plan for the blue dots rather than the orange dots the next time. Because it's a legal regulation that you have to carry a proportion of your fuel, a percentage of your total track distance as reserve fuel. So if you're more accurate in planning, you carry less fuel, less reserve fuel. And the less weight you carry on the aircraft, the less fuel you burn in the air. So, and that, having 1,400 flights a day in the busiest period can, convert itself into significant cost savings and efficiencies for us. For example, to give you an illustration, some airlines do remove their magazines from and replace them with iPad or tablet versions just to save on weight, to show you how important weight is for every airline. So that's one of the examples, planned versus actual routes. So processed in Alteryx and visualized in Tableau. And we can do that for many things. That was like the initial proof of concept. And the next example that I'm going to cover is, if you just bear with. The next example is visualizing flight data monitoring data. So the problem we had with that previously is that we have a system which is very efficient at collecting data and flagging, flights where something potentially might have happened or not have happened. But it was very difficult to visualize that and gain the context of the situation, what actually happened, where did it happen. So you can see that something might have happened, but you don't know where, or you can't easily visualize where. Part of that reason was the resolution of the data, and the weight was filled in, and it was coming out of the system. So that's why we've decided, hey, can we use Alteryx with this one to infill the data and do some spatial manipulation in the background with it, and we actually managed to do it. So if I show you this one, this is where we're picking up the same file, and rather than having to drag it manually in Excel, which is what some of the guys were doing previously, and this is why they were actually reluctant to analyze flights on a bigger scale when it comes to these smaller details. Now they could do it with just, which kind of does all the infilling for them, gets rid of any outliers, if there's such, because sometimes you can get outliers in the data, and then plugs it into Google Earth. And then I can show you for a normal flight what that kind of looks like. So I'll just I hope you can all see my screen. So that's Europe. And what I turned on was the European airspace coordinates, which is not a custom thing you can plug into Google Earth, or not easily at least, but we managed to do that with yet another Alteryx workflow, which is this one. Nice and easy, takes a few seconds. And now I'll show you the results of the flight data. So you can see that's our flight here, originating here, and then landing in Innsbruck in Austria. So you can pretty much zoom in, and you have a 3D view of the whole flight, and you can see what happened, where it happened, and we can try and spot where they were on the ground, where the aircraft was on the ground, what the taxi out route was, and what the climb out was. So they started about here, taxied out, took off, and then went en route. And you can see, for example, here, if we were to look at the elevation profile, how efficiently they climbed. And apologies, Google Earth tends to do that every time, but you can see the cruising altitude, which airspaces they flew across. So they departed from London, just briefly crossed Paris from the looks of it, just the edge, then Brussels, into Brussels, Langen, which is Germany, Munich, again Germany, and into Austria. And then you can see where they start the descent. I think just about here. Yeah, just about here they start the descent, so we can tell that now as well. And then you can see how they start to descend into the valley, and the airport is right in the end over there. So it's a really nice way to visualize the flights, which and you can pretty much see where they parked, just over here. So previously it wasn't very easy to do that, what I just did in a few seconds. And the workflow, to be honest, that takes a few seconds to run. So as long as you can keep feeding it the data, you can plug in as many flights as you want. And then you can start looking at trends and patterns and all sorts of interesting things. So I think that's kind of briefly what I had in terms of the examples. So with that, I'm just happy to hand it over to Matt.
Thanks, Nick. Let's move on here. So he showed us a couple brief examples and uses of how he's utilizing Alteryx and Tableau together. If this is something that you're really looking to get a grip on, I would really highly suggest you download the Alteryx free trial. It's a 14-day fully function trial. We also have the ability to offer you a visual analytics kit. And what this is, it's a sample of analytic workflows that correspond to Tableau visualization. So you would need both Alteryx and Tableau. And as Bob mentioned earlier, Tableau has a couple different options in terms of downloads and free versions available. So go ahead and go to their website as well to download the trial or the free version of Tableau itself. And with that, I think we're ready to open it up to some questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the Q&A panel on the lower right-hand corner. And, it looks like we do have one question for you, Nick. How long would you say it took to get up and running or comfortable with Alteryx and Tableau?
Well, to be honest, it wasn't that long. What was long is just sorting out the data quality issues that we had in the background. That was it. I mean, if you have good quality data, not long at all. And, Alteryx does help a lot with data quality issues. So I would say, depending on what you want to do, a few days. There are really nice tutorials and everything else. The problem with me was that I was doing that alongside other things I was doing. So
okay.
If I could devote more time on Alteryx, I would say a good day or 2 days.
Are there any other projects you're looking to use either Alteryx and Tableau, or just Alteryx or just Tableau for?
Oh yeah, lots of things. Now we're getting quite popular within the whole department, and they kind of have all sorts of crazy stuff for us to try, and we're up for it because we can kind of do it now, and it's fun.
Okay. Another question. You showed the route versus planned route. How does that affect your planning moving forward for each airline or each flight?
Well, when you compare that on a large scale, you see for a flight A to B, if 9 times out of 10 it takes a shortcut, you see where the shortcut is and you plan for that. So next time you carry less fuel. So at the moment it's a proof of concept, if that's what you're asking, but then in the future we're seriously looking at actually plugging it into our flight planning system as such and probably optimizing it daily.
Gotcha. What about Tableau? Do you have any other projects you're looking to utilize Tableau for?
Oh yeah, lots of things around geospatial data. So we just a few weeks ago we did a really nice investigation with our engineering department because in July there was a leap second added to the GPS satellites orbiting. So we were just trying to correlate if that leap second was causing any issues in our GPS receivers on our aircraft, and we used Alteryx to prep the data and Tableau to visualize it, and that proved to be quite interesting, just to see if there was any correlation, and there wasn't, in case you were wondering.
Gotcha. Okay, it looks like the other couple questions we have in, differentiating Alteryx versus things like Informatica, SQL Server, and Talend. I can answer that one. In terms of how we differentiate ourselves around a lot of these different tools, first of all, with SQL Server, we work hand in hand with SQL Server, really. We have the ability to do some in-database processing and blending in SQL Server. But the big difference for us versus tools like traditional IT-driven tools for data integration like like Talend and Informatica is we feel that we're very analyst-focused. We have this drag-and-drop user interface. There's no coding involved. It's something that you don't have to get IT involvement in actually building out the workflow process. It's all in the hands of the analyst to really empower them. Nick, I don't know if you have any other thoughts around, if you have any experience in any of those other tools or what your thought process is or anything you can add to, what you've been able to do with Alteryx versus, previous tools.
Kind of say about these, Informatica tools and any of the others mentioned, Matt. But what I can do now with Alteryx compared to Excel, for example, is just the sheer amount of analysis that I can easily reuse, and it's to me it's just so much easier to create a workflow that does something because basically I just lay out the way I think as a workflow, and if something doesn't work, I kind of rejig it, and it's definitely quicker than any of the previous tools that have been used, and I don't have to redo the analysis. And on top of that, I have different new ways of analyzing things or visualizing them. We're quite heavy users of spatial data, so that's one of the things that I couldn't do easily previously.
Great. And then another question is, do you all look at Alteryx as providing an alternative to SQL? Well, I would say yes and no there, because with the drag-and-drop user interface, there's no need to really write SQL. You can still utilize a lot of the SQL you've written previously in the workflow if you need to. But, yeah, it is something that eliminates the need for SQL, but it doesn't have to eliminate the processes that you've already created. Okay, another one is, does Alteryx have any functionality to run automated real-time or batch scoring? Now, we do have the ability to do some automation. So every single workflow that Nick showed, it can be saved and automated and rerun. He doesn't have to rebuild that process each time. What we do have the ability to do is schedule jobs or schedule processes. So once that workflow is built, if you have the schedule capabilities within Alteryx, you can run that every couple minutes, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, etc., to get near real-time scoring or batch, so to speak. So we do have that capability in terms of a scheduling process. If you're looking at instantaneously, 1 to 5 seconds, 1 to 10 seconds, we don't have that capability in terms of real time. Does Alteryx have connectivity with other analytic tools like R or SAS? So we do have the ability to read and write to SAS B.7. So if you do have a SAS file that you want to import into Alteryx, we do have that capability. If you want to export it back out, we can do that as well. In terms of technology like R, our predictive analytics tools are built on the foundation of R. So the drag and drop user interface, we have drag and drop tools that are built on the R code itself. There's no need to really know the R script or R program to utilize them. You just drag them onto the canvas, set your perimeters, and build out your processes. At the same time, if you are an R coder or an R programmer, we do have the ability for you to bring in custom R scripts into that same exact workflow. So it is a very flexible environment. So does easyJet make use of the Alteryx server, and if so, what benefit does it bring to you?
We don't at present. We're building a case for it. Personally, I think there will be a lot of benefits if we bring it on board. It's just a matter of arranging it with IT first, and as I said, building a case for it through examples like the ones shown here, and then cost benefiting that.
Perfect. Okay, another question is, first of all, great talk, Nick. Do you deliver a regular, whether it's daily or weekly, Tableau output to a wider easyJet business? For example, do you output or do you provide drillable dashboards to a wider range of business within easyJet?
First of all, thank you. Yes, we do. We do have a lot of drillable dashboards to the business through Tableau, and we do use Tableau Server for that. And what we've just got sign off on, one of the latest one was some of our safety stats. We're moving them to Tableau from the previous horror of PowerPoint presentations with linked Excel graphs, which used to be a right pain. And the idea now is that everybody would have the monthly safety stats on their iPads. So, for example, for our management pilots, that's quite an important thing because they all have iPads, and they don't have a regular access to laptops because they're flying most of the time, but they can just open their tablets and refresh and get the latest stats on their tabs. But it's still in the final stages of testing.
Great. Next question is, how does Alteryx and Tableau work with SharePoint? I'll take the Alteryx answer here real quick, and then I'll let Bob talk around the SharePoint aspect of Tableau. In terms of how Alteryx works with SharePoint, we do have connectors, cloud connectors that allow you to read and write to SharePoint. So that would be how we would work exactly with SharePoint. Bob, do you want to touch a little bit about how Tableau works with SharePoint?
Sure, yeah. We have quite a simple approach. Once you've published to Tableau Server or Tableau Online, you can paste JavaScript directly into any HTML and Java source. So you can just paste and have your analytics, your dashboards, just visible in SharePoint via that, and they're still hosted on Server or Tableau Online. So any updates are automatically reflected across.
Great. Okay, next question. Does Alteryx allow you to populate predefined analytic data models, or do you need predefined analytic data models? I guess we'd probably have to dig into that question a little bit more, but in terms of do we need predefined analytic data models, in that same workflow environment, you're able to build out that, not only that data blending and data joining process, but you can also incorporate analysis into that workflow. It can be in the form of statistics, predictive, or spatial analysis. I know Nick showed a lot around spatial capabilities within the process itself, so you wouldn't necessarily have to have a predefined analytic data model that you would have to access. Now, that being said, if you do have something built out in something like SAS that we touched on, you can export directly into that to that model itself. Okay. Have you used any of the predictive analytics tools at easyJet, or do you foresee yourself using that, Nick?
Yes, we do. We're just trying to sort out our data challenges first with Alteryx and kind of work with the data architects to get the data the right way. And then off we go, trying to do some of the predictive stuff. So some of the interesting projects that we have up and coming is trying to correlate some of these safety events against weather data, and that's basically heavily using Alteryx and Tableau, and then running predictive on that.
Perfect. I guess this is a good segue. How does the functionality of Alteryx compare to programs like SAS or SPSS? Does it have all the standard predictive models, or is it more of an ETL tool? Now, I wouldn't say that it's more of an ETL tool, but I think our approach to, serving the analyst needs is a little different. When we look at the standard predictive models and functionality and capability that are available in Alteryx, there's over 60 different tools that are available for predictive analytics and spatial analysis. And those tools range from data investigation to predictive modeling to clustering and grouping to time series, etc. So there's quite a few different functionalities that are available. And most of what we have in there from a functional standpoint are the most widely used algorithms, etc., that most people use for predictive analysis. In regards to an ETL tool, I think it's just a different approach that we take. When we talk to analysts, we talk to a lot of people like Nick, for instance, that were stuck in Excel, stuck in using things in Microsoft Access, having difficulty getting data in the right form and right shape that they needed to do some sort of further analysis down the line. So for us, it's really about focusing on getting the data right, then building out those predictive models and building out a further process down the line to really enable that analyst. And, I think Nick's perfect use case here where, he started out trying to do a lot of stuff in Excel and brought in Alteryx to get that data right to do some analysis, and now he's looking to do predictive down the line. Nick, I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Spot on, Matt. The thing is, with Excel, you're kind of masking the issue to some extent, because if your data is wrong and you kind of, do plug in some formulas to correct that, then it kind of works. But then if you get asked to do it on a larger scale, you're kind of stuck. So, yeah.
Great. Okay, next question is, can Alteryx be used with R like Tableau? So I touched a little bit on this earlier. So all of our predictive technology is built on R. So we have the drag and drop user interface. Every icon that's built for predictive analysis, whether it's predictive modeling, time series, etc., is all built on the R programming language. The difference is you don't have to know the R programming language in order to use it. At the same time, it's a flexible enough environment where we have a tool called the R tool, which is the same drag and drop icon that allows you to bring that tool onto your canvas and put in your own custom R scripts and utilize any sort of R programming that way. So it's a very flexible environment. Sorry, I'm just going through one of these questions. Okay. So one question was around how Alteryx is based on R, but how do we basically work around some of the memory issues with R? So one of the things we do from an in-memory standpoint is we're able to really, it's a hybrid approach to in-memory analytics. So when you're processing an Alteryx workflow, it's writing to temporary files, it's utilizing disk, and it's utilizing memory. So it's a combination of everything. That's one of the ways we're able to process data super fast. When it comes to handling massive amounts of data to try to process R algorithms, et cetera, R does have a tendency to break down depending on what types of R algorithms you're running and how big the processes are, et cetera. So it's really hard to understand, when you're going to run into that bottleneck with R and when you're not going to. One of the things we do from a scalability standpoint is we partner with Revolution Analytics, who's now part of Microsoft. So one of the ways we get around that is we're able to, in that same workflow environment, determine that if you do have Revolution, you have the ability to utilize the Revolution engine to process larger amounts of data that are processing that R code. And also, we're working on other aspects in our next upcoming release in the next few months around being able to utilize other areas of scalability around R. So next few months to understand what we're doing around that area as well. Okay. Here's a good question for you, Nick. It'll make you an honest man. What was the most frustrating restriction you have come across while using either Alteryx or Tableau?
Say again, what was the first what, Matt? Sorry?
What was the most frustrating restriction you have come across using either Alteryx or Tableau?
Restrictions from IT, basically, just access to more data. That has been the main one, to be honest.
Perfect. Okay. Let's do one more question here. Give me a second. There's a big list here. Is there any limitation in handling data in Alteryx, or is it system memory dependent? Basically, there's no limit in terms of size or, rows or records or anything like that. Obviously, the better machine you're going to have, the better output and processing you're going to get. But, I think we do have technical requirements on our website, what we recommend from a minimum, maximum standpoint. But I will say this, we've done a lot of different benchmarking against different analytic competitors out there, and, we are super fast compared to a lot of these other people that are trying to do the exact same thing. So in terms of limiting or handling data in Alteryx, there really is no limitations there. So with that, I want to thank Bob and Nick for joining us today. And we will be sending out recording of this presentation, and everything else will be online as well if you want to go ahead and take a look at this again, if you want to pass this on to any other people within your organization. And with that, thank you, Nick, and thanks again, Bob, for joining us.
Thanks, Matt. Pleasure.
Thank you.